Alright guys, before I get into this video, I want to make something perfectly clear here. I don't make how-to videos. These are simply videos showing you what I'm doing at the time. If you've taken them to be how-to videos, then there's nothing I can do about that. But they're not. The only reason that I've made this is because I'm getting sick of this stupid comments about how I talk too much and I'm not showing enough of the actual build. So you know what? You're going to get me talking a little bit more. Just out of pure annoyance, I'm making this video. So here you go. If you know anything about engines, you should be able to tell that this guy is a 4-stroke. It's got a little oil filler right down there. And from what I was looking at online, it's not really easier to convert a 4 versus a 2, but I have the tools and the parts that I would need to convert the 4. I don't have the parts for the 2, so good news is turns freely, which means it's not seized, it's not rusted, and you can hear, I'll be very quiet, you can hear the compression. So looks like we're good to go on this. I just gotta disassemble it and make a few modifications. It's getting kind of late. I'm gonna call it a day for now, but you can see got the outside cover off, which is the one in the back. That piece there. I got the head off. You can see that's the piston. This is a 4-stroke engine. It's a little different on a 2-stroke, but same idea. What we're going to do is eliminate all of this. We don't need the exhaust valve anymore. All we're going to be doing is using the intake valve. What I'm going to do is put it like this. This is your camshaft. Every 4-stroke engine has one. Well, let's just go with every 4-stroke engine has one. These are your cams. There's 2 of them because there's 2 valves. When you can see how the cam is shaped, when this part is pointing up, that means the valve is going to be open. So what we're going to do, when this guy goes back in, is we are going to take the opposite side of the cam. You can see the lobe is down here. We're going to take the opposite side, glob on some weld, and make it look identical to the bottom, so that we have 2 lobes. Normally, with 4-stroke engines, your piston starts here, okay? As it's going down, I don't have anything connected here, so you won't actually see what's happening, but I'll explain it to you. As it's going down, your intake valve opens, and this sucks in fuel, okay? Once it gets right down to the bottom, your intake valve closes, and this guy continues its cycle up. Now, when it gets to the top, that's when the flywheel interacts with your magneto, get your spark, and explosion, okay? It blows your piston down. Now, when it's all the way down, your exhaust valve opens, and on the way back up, it pushes all of that spent smoke and shit out. That is the very basics of 4-stroke. What we're going to do is use the hole that the spark plug was in. We are going to put a line, it'll sit about there somewhere in 3 dimensions. And that'll force steam or air into it. So the piston will go down. Once the piston goes down, that valve will open. It'll exhaust the fuel, and this will keep spinning because I'm going to put a flywheel on it. The piston will come up, and instead of the exhaust valve opening, what'll happen is there's still air coming in, so it'll force it down again. Once it gets to the bottom, our valve will open, it'll come up again. So continuing from last week, this is particular to 4-stroke engines. 2-stroke engines are a little different. You take and you put some sort of adapter into the spark plug hole. You can see, hopefully these bolts don't fall out. You can see the adapter there. I think that's just a quarter 20 thread maybe. Any standard compressor nipple will have that same size on it. And that's our inlet for the air to go in. For the outlet, I believe in the last video I said we're using the intake port, but actually we're using the exhaust port. I'm going to take off all of this stuff on this side because I need access to this little spot you can't really see, but there's a cover here that I need to get access to inside there. Alright, so I got all this stuff off. This is where the tank was sitting, and this is the cover that I had to remove. The main reason I had to remove those is because I got to put the lifters back in. There's the lifters. They sit up in here, and then when the cam comes around it pushes this up, which then pushes the valve up. But I can't hold these up, put the camshaft with the sprocket on it in there, and then line up there's a notch on this and a notch on this. See if I can get it real close and show you. Okay, you can obviously see the circle that's right there, but what you're looking for is this little guy right there. That has to line up with a little notch on one of these teeth. And you probably can't see it, but it's right there. So what I would have to do is hold these guys up, put this in, spin it to where it needs to be before it meshes, make sure this is in the right position, and then push it all together. And I just can't do that. I don't have 6 hands and there's no room in there. So what we're going to do, make sure there's some light in there. Just going to push these up. Use a couple pairs of tiny vice grips. Hold them in there. It doesn't need to be clamped hard because you don't want to mar that surface. But that'll allow me to get these up even higher than they would be if the cam was engaged. And it'll allow me to assemble the whole thing. Quick note here. I could cap this. This is the port for our carburetor. Carburetor set right there. But I don't need to cap it. I'm taking the lifter out of this valve. So this valve is now dead. It's not going to do anything, and it's effectively capped. Right, it's all back together. Went back together with absolutely no problems. I got that extra cam welded on. I didn't actually get a picture of it, but it looks exactly the same as the other one. You don't need to see it. And I figured, while I'm here, might as well get some video of it actually running. So, I've attached my drill. So let's just get this supported. Make sure it's still pretty much in frame. Okay. And First of all, I'm going to run it slowly so you just can see what's happening. It's really hard because there's a lot of friction in there. So you can see as this piston goes down, valve's closed, valve opens, the piston starts to come back up, closed, open, and that's your 2 strokes. Basically the only thing I need to do right now is see if the thing runs. I've cobbled together some plumbing parts that I have lying around from other projects and put in a on-off valve. And as you can see, it works. So, right now, we're sitting at 20 psi. And as you can see, it completed its revolution, but it didn't continue that revolution. I'm hoping that is just because there's not enough air, and I'm hoping it's not because this is not an adequate flywheel, because that would really suck. This is 50 psi, and there we go. So, I'm surprised. It works really well. I did a quick test. I cranked up the pressure to 60 psi. I opened the valve and I let it run to see when it would stop. And turns out somewhere between 40 and 45 psi is where it stops functioning, which I'm perfectly happy with. To be honest, I was expecting like 80 to 90 psi to get this thing running. Now I actually have to turn it into some sort of steam engine. Now I need to make something, some sort of a mount, a stand, and connect it to a power source, a fuel source. I already have most of the plumbing figured out. I need a flexible line for the steam, which I should be getting tomorrow. Okay, I realize this is fairly crude, but this is what it'll end up looking like. You have your base with your wheel, which would have been the dolly, an arm coming out so that it can be tipped up so it sits straight up, and you have your fuel tank, your water tank, and your engine. Okay? What's going to happen is I have the propane coming out into a burner, which is, in fact, right there. It's the side burner off of a barbecue. And that's going to go down, heat my water. Okay? Now, coming out of here, propane tanks, once you take the valve off, where is it? Here. Once you take the valve off a propane tank, all it is a 3/4 inch fitting. So, it's easy enough. It's easy enough to just take that fitting off and replace it with a piece of 3/4 inch pipe. Running up here, we're going to go to a valve, which is just going to have an open end on it. Running down, we're going to go into our flexible line, braided stainless steel most likely, into another shutoff, which will control the steam going in so that I can build up pressure here before it reaches my engine. We have our water tank with a, this one is the pressure inside the tank. This one is the pressure coming out of here, and there's a regulator to control the amount of pressure. And then coming out of that valve, I've got my hose here. And that guy goes into there. Very hard to do with only one hand. There we go. And I know that this hose will stand up to the pressure. I'm pretty sure it'll stand up to the heat as well. The propane is completely done. I've got it all connected into a valve there. The regulator on it, I think, puts out 4 psi. I'm not really sure. But I got it coming out of there. And then it goes into this guy. I think I showed you this before. But that's actually going to sit underneath the tank. And I'm kind of hoping that that will put out enough BTUs to boil the water. Just a little quick thing here. I got a emergency release valve. Gonna hook a lanyard up to that, hang it down. I'm gonna explain everything from one end to the other. Let's start here. We have our fuel tank, which feeds into our valve, control valve. All of that is rescued off of a barbecue. It feeds down into our burner. I've drilled the jet on the intake, the intake for the burner, just to get a little bit more fuel through. And that feeds up into our water tank. Just a quick note here. I will be putting a handle on this end to match the wheels so it acts like a dolly, but I haven't done that yet. These tanks are both supported by some angle iron and a band that goes around. As you can see, it's been bolted over here. This one's bolted on this side. And I can take these off and lift the tanks right out. Except for the engine. The engine's got 4 bolts, but I'll get to that in a sec. Okay? Now, we come up here. We have a dealcoholized beer case acting as a heat shield. I'm going to replace that with an actual piece of steel. But if you look inside there, I don't know how you can see. Take it over here. You can see it just goes into a 3/4 inch fitting up into my pipe. You can see at the moment we're sitting at 90 psi, and I'll prove that to you. Just there you go. That was loud. There's no need for such a long piece right here. It was just the only piece of pipe that I had. From there we go into our pressure gauge, which is actually approaching sort of a dangerous level at the moment. Not really dangerous, but awkward. And then we have our quick release into a flexible stainless steel line. This guy right here, actually it might go off in a second, is an automatic pressure valve and a safety release. Into the other end over here we have the other end of that hose, obviously, to a valve which goes into the engine. Everything's sitting on an old bed frame. And I've put these up. I'm going to actually put a piece of steel here to support that a little bit better. Okay, so what I've done, you saw me take apart the engine. One thing I didn't show, which I did recently, was take out this little plug right here. That plug is actually the drain plug for the oil. There's actually one on either side. I just took the one out. The reason for that is because I was finding that the steam was actually going below the piston, which is a very normal thing in this kind of engine. For normally it would be the fuel, but in this case it was the steam that was going through and then pooling, and it was causing the piston to run more slowly. So I've taken that out. And then what it does is it just allows all that water and stuff to go out, and there's no longer that hydrolock, we'll call it. Oh, something I noticed with this, you have to have the tank essentially full for it to run properly. I started with about 1 liter of water in there, and it did run, but it didn't maintain pressure as it was running, so it would only run for about a minute or so. And it would slowly grind down and down and down until it was done. Put in, I believe it was 4 liters of water last time, and it ran for a little bit longer, a little bit better. This time I filled the tank up. 4 liters of water is basically about there, okay? This time I filled the tank up to about there. And if I let the pressure run up to about 90 psi, I can basically maintain this thing indefinitely. And I find too that it actually, the pressure drops more slowly if I'm running faster. And I think that's because there's always a constant pressure in. And as that piston is coming up and exhausting the steam that's in the line is then going out. Okay? So if it's running faster, it means that valve is open for a smaller amount of time, and less steam is allowed to come straight out of the line and then through and then out of the engine. But I'll leave you with the engine running. It's very simple. All I've done is put this mark top dead center. Whoops. I've put this mark at top dead center. All I have to do is turn that guy, open the valve, and it should just continue all the way around. Or not. Let's try it a little bit lower. There you go.